Welcome to Clotheshorse, the podcast that is now pretty obsessed with looking at old issues of Life magazine on the internet. You can actually look at them yourself. I found them via the New York Public Library website, but they're hosted on Google Books. And man, I'm just a sucker for all those old ads. They're so fascinating to me. Definitely a different time in advertising, which we're actually going to talk about in this week's episode. So, yeah. I'm your host, Amanda, and this is episode 212. This week, as promised last week, we're going to be talking about all things clothing swaps with my guest, Sam. And Sam is the founder of BeReworn, a platform that helps people find and host clothing swaps. Sam will be sharing great advice for how to host your own clothing swap, including where to have it. You might be surprised to hear her recommendation. Why volunteers are important, the items you will need for a successful swap, why she recommends charging a ticket fee to participate, how to deal with worrying about whether or not anyone will show up. That's the big one right there, right? I think we can all agree. And so much more. But before that, let's talk about plastic cups and other disposable items. In last week's episode, I asked all of you who lived outside the US to tell me about where and how disposable items, like those ubiquitous red Solo cups, are used in your country. And I received an email from a listener in Norway. It sent me down a whole research rabbit hole. So let's give it a read. Hello, just wanted to answer your question about whether or not red Solo cups are a thing outside of the US. I feel like those red plastic cups are extremely stereotypically American, and I think the conversation on cultural differences and sustainability is something that should be talked about more because it's fun. I agree. So here are some things I want to share as someone who lives outside of the US. First off, I am from Norway and I grew up here. My view on the US and sustainability is based on what I've seen on the internet, YouTube videos, and generally what Americans share or showcase digitally. I've never been to the US, so my assumptions can definitely be flawed. My understanding of the US is that one-time use plastics are extremely common. I've often seen vlogs of people eating off of paper plates, drinking from plastic cups, etc. Another thing I also see a lot are Americans using wet wipes to clean surfaces. This is a true story. These are things that fascinate me because I always end up thinking, why? I don't see single-use plastics used anywhere near as much as I see it used in the US. I don't really understand why so many Americans don't seem to use plates, cutlery, glass mugs, or cups. I've also found it strange to see paper towels and wet wipes used instead of washcloths. I'm used to this being a given in people's homes. It's something I really cannot wrap my head around because why would someone spend money on something again and again instead of getting the reusable thing instead? As a European, it's just common sense to have the reusable thing in your home. So my question is, well, I guess first of all, is my view correct or is it just the influencers on social media that love single-use stuff? And if my view is correct, I'm interested in the big why. I don't know if you have the answer, but it's an interesting topic that I've thought about many times before. What made the US end up doing it this way? I'm sure there is a reason. Detective mode on. P.S. to all the Americans listening, I know not all of you live like that, okay? Especially if you listen to this podcast, I do trust that you know better. Well, thank you, Cookie Crumble. I swear that is the name signed on this email. And yes, it does slightly make me hungry. Thank you, Cookie Crumble, for sharing the European perspective on this. This email inspired me to look into why and when single-use items became so common in the United States, because they are very common. We all have to be real about that. That is in fact true. And obviously that wasn't always the case. But before we jump into that, let's set a few things straight. One, as Cookie Crumble even stated in their own PS, that's a postscript, by the way, not all Americans are blazing through disposable wipes and plates and cups, etc. Many of us are scandalized by the notion of cleaning up a spill with paper towels rather than just using a reusable cleaning towel. Seriously, I haven't seen an ad for paper towels in a really long time, but I'm sure they still make commercials about them, right? Or maybe now they just sell themselves. But I have so many memories of seeing commercials where paper towels were literally used to clean up like orange juice or water. And I'm just like, why couldn't you just use a towel? I get the use of paper towels for particularly egregious situations, which we always have paper towels around because of that. I mean, we live with cats who do barf, and I do also sometimes barf and pee and poop, and these are just parts of being organic creatures, right? So I get the use for paper towels, but I do think it is funny that we are, via advertising, socialized to use paper towels to literally clean up water. We'll get into the advertising aspect of it in a bit. But also, many of us here in the US were raised washing and reusing aluminum foil, reusing margarine containers, Ziploc bags, etc. I know I'm not the only one, right? Like I'm not the only person who's ever had a line of string above their sink with little clips holding plastic bags, right? Like other people do this. I know you do. Anyway, the US is not a monolith. I would also hazard a guess that most people are trying not to waste these things, even if it's just for financial reasons, but they probably aren't thinking about the impact of, plastic cups and paper plates at events, right? These things are just so normalized. More on that in a minute. I do think that's kind of easy, and it scores points on social media to make silly generalizations like Americans are stupid, Americans are lazy, Americans eat bad food and they're ugly and they love plastic and they all drive huge pickup trucks and they all love Donald Trump. Those of us who live here and eat delicious food and avoid plastic and are also upset about huge pickup trucks and, well, don't get us started on Donald Trump, we would like to assure you that the United States are filled with many different kinds of people. Interestingly enough, I'll just add, most of the claims I see of this nature about Americans being lazy, loving plastic, eating bad food, having bad taste, all that kind of rhetoric that I see on social media, it's honestly often made by other Americans. So there's that too. Okay, so that's number one. Number two disclaimer here before we jump in is that for some people, disposable products like plastic utensils, paper plates, and convenience foods with a lot of packaging, like microwave meals and takeout, are unavoidable due to the individual circumstances of their lives, whether that's financial, lack of time and access, or even just the physical ability to use reusable items. So when we talk about minimizing our use of these kinds of items, it's important to remember that not everyone has that option. And that's okay. For those of us who do have that option, it's time for us to do things differently. So when did disposable stuff become deeply ingrained in day-to-day life here in the US? Well, it all starts with plastic, and plastic is so ubiquitous. It's kind of hard to imagine a world without it. I try to avoid new plastic items as much as possible, but even sitting here in my office, I can see it all around me in different ways. The body of my wireless mouse, all of the cables and plugs for my devices, my calculator, the protective shell on my external hard drive, the handles on my scissors, all of my pens. While I'm no fan of plastic, I can also see how the invention and fine-tuning of plastic has made a lot of things possible in our day-to-day lives, particularly when we talk about technology, medicines, healthcare, cosmetics, so many things. So the word plastic actually originally meant, and well, spoiler, it still means this too, pliable and easily shaped. Like I said, you can still use plastic as an adjective in that way. But for less than a century, it has also referred to a group of materials called polymers. Polymers are actually long chains of molecules. And while yes, plastic is synthetic, more about that in a few, polymers can also be found in nature. A great example of a natural polymer that all of us learned about in elementary school is cellulose. That's the material that comprises cell walls of plants. It makes them rigid. And humankind has actually found ways to make things out of cellulose, like rayon, viscose, and modal. These fabrics are called man-made cellulosics, and making them out of plant fiber is quite a process. That's a conversation for another episode. But yes, these are pretty incredible polymers. They're very useful. The reason cellulose is so strong is that it is made of a very long chain of molecules. The polymers that make up plastics, including polyester, acrylic, and nylon fabrics, are made of much longer and far more complex chains of atoms. This makes plastics low-key last forever, literally, and it also makes them more flexible, hence the name plastic. Of course, cellulose is biodegradable, while plastics are not. And plastics are made from petroleum and other fossil fuels, creating massive issues of pollution and carbon footprint. If you asked me before I did the research for this episode about when and why the first plastics were invented, I would have probably said during World War II. In fact, I know that because I told Dustin that earlier today. And that is mostly wrong, but also slightly correct. It wouldn't win me on Jeopardy, but, maybe if we were playing with like Price is Right rules where, close enough but without going over, I'm not sure. The first synthetic polymer was created in 1869, and it was actually made using, cellulose. Back then, billiards, aka pool, were growing in popularity, but there was a problem. Billiard balls, and by the way, this fact makes me so sad, billiard balls were made from ivory. And with billiards suddenly the thing to do with one's spare time, meeting the demand for billiard balls meant, this is the sad part, slaughtering wild elephants because ivory comes from the tusks of elephants. And while they were out there slaughtering elephants right and left so people could play pool, imagine, I just said that out loud. How fucked up is that? Anyway, they're out there, they're killing all these elephants. They still can't keep up with the consumer demand. A New York company offered $10,000, that's about $231,000 now, for anyone who could create a substitute for ivory that would be appropriate for billiard balls. American inventor John Wesley Hyatt decided to take the challenge. He found that by treating cellulose, which he got from cotton fiber, with camphor, which is an ingredient you might know from having your chest slathered with Vicks VapoRub as a kid. Raise your hand if you've been there. I definitely have. I do not like it. I did not do it to my own child, just saying. Well, he found that by doing that, he could create a plastic that could be molded into many different shapes. And with the right amount of paint and color, it could mimic all kinds of natural materials like ivory and tortoiseshell. This new material was called celluloid. The invention of celluloid was a very big deal that cannot be overstated. For the first time ever, human manufacturing was no longer limited by availability of a material in nature. In the case of the billiard supply companies, they were no longer reliant on the availability of elephants and their tusks. Now they could make as many billiard balls as their customers wanted. It turned out that long-term, celluloid wasn't great for billiard balls, so Hyatt never won that $10,000 prize, but it was great for so many other items like combs and piano keys, handles and bags, and so much more. This meant businesses could grow and grow and grow unhampered by nature. Furthermore, celluloid was way less expensive than naturally occurring and scarce materials like ivory or tortoiseshell, which meant that products could be less expensive. And that meant that more people could afford them. So in general, celluloid opened up an era of increased manufacturing and consumption. When you think about it, it kind of sets us all up for late stage capitalism. And wow, it all started with a good game of pool. I laugh because if I don't, I'll cry. Now in 2024, we can't talk about plastics without talking about dun dun da, or dun dun da, maybe wah wah, oil. So when did plastics stop being made from cellulose? Well, in 1907, Belgian chemist Leo Baekeland invented Bakelite, and all of you vintage jewelry collectors just got so excited, right? This Bakelite was the first fully synthetic plastic. And when I say that, I mean literally not made of any molecules found in nature. Bakelite was made of two compounds that were derived from coal tar and wood alcohol, aka methanol. Believe it or not, Baekeland was not looking to invent cool new jewelry. He was actually hoping to find a replacement for shellac. And shellac was being used as a natural electric insulator, and it was a very important part of getting electrical power to homes and businesses. There just wasn't enough of it to meet the growing demand. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about just a few moments ago with ivory and the billiard balls, where basically industry was being held back in terms of like exponential growth, right? By the scarcity of these naturally occurring materials that the industries relied on, right? So here we are now, the burgeoning electrification of the United States is being held back by shellac. So Leo Baekeland gets to work on this. He creates Bakelite, and Bakelite was durable and heat resistant. It was amazing for this purpose of electrification. It was also a better option for mass production than its predecessor, celluloid, because it didn't require plant products. Because even at that point, now just needing plant products to make plastic was holding back the full amount of production that could have happened, right? So now we get to World War II. And many synthetic materials were sort of born, or at least massively funded, by the United States government during World War II. The military need for materials, naturally occurring materials like silk, wool, and rubber, just could not be filled. So we see the United States government working with scientists and companies like DuPont to develop synthetic substitutes for these materials. In fact, it's going to feel like I'm picking on DuPont. I'm going to bring them up a few times in this episode. They're not the only company that was involved in this and went on to make lots of plasticky things later, but DuPont is just a great example. And DuPont ranked 15th among United States corporations in the value of wartime production contracts, which is really interesting because they were also sharing technology with the Nazis. That's a whole other thing. I do want you to put a pin in this whole idea of the war effort funding the development of these products and really allowing these companies to just explode in terms of growth. I want you to put a pin in that because we're going to come back to it, okay? So DuPont, for example, developed nylon as an alternative for silk, and it was used in parachutes and many other military items. Acrylic was developed as an alternative for wool. It was great for uniforms for the troops. DuPont had already developed polyester before the war, and that was a useful material as well. And of course, DuPont and other companies were developing new plastics that could replace rubber and other materials in every aspect of the war effort. So these companies, they grew and grew. And then the war was over. And it's not like these companies were just going to say, okay, well, that was nice. We made a lot of money. Let's retire. No, because by then they had executives and shareholders to pay. So this is when they turned their efforts onto the average American. Nylon and acrylic were sold to customers as these like new miracle fabrics that were superior to the natural versions, right? Polyester was rebranded as Orlon, Dacron, and Lycra. Lycra is the stretchy stuff that workout clothes and swimwear and, even our jeans are made from today. Women's magazines featured full-page ads extolling the virtues of these new space-age miracle fabrics that didn't shrink, they didn't fade, they didn't wrinkle, because they were plastic, but they would also save time and theoretically be a really good investment of money because they would last forever, which is in fact true, but maybe not in the way they meant it. At the same time, DuPont's selling all these miracle fabrics, etc. They were also selling insecticides, which, were going to revolutionize farming, right? They were also selling Teflon, which is the non-stick coating that was going to, make pans last forever, make them easy to clean, make food somehow taste better and not burn, just be so convenient and miraculous. Of course, both of these products, the insecticides and Teflon, much later, they were discovered to be wildly carcinogenic. All of the companies that made a ton of money off of plastics and synthetics during the war were spending a lot of time thinking about how to sell more products during peacetime. In the 1940s, believe it or not, plastics were being hyped as the next big miracle to change human lives forever. And I suppose we can argue that yes, plastics are certainly changing what it means to live on this planet for generations to come. But back then, plastics were seen as the solution to all of the challenges humans faced, from healthcare to housing to hunger, poverty, food poisoning, you name it. Plastics were seen as this inexpensive resource that would sort of level set the playing field for everyone. All humans, regardless of their financial means, would live a life of leisure and comfort thanks to plastics. The first National Plastics Exposition was held in New York City in 1946, and attendees and the press were wowed by what they saw. All the things they saw are things that we take for granted now. But just imagine seeing these ideas for the first time ever, like transparent packaging for food so customers could see the contents. We take that for granted now, but that did not exist back then. Dishes and cups that didn't break when dropped. I mean, what a miracle. Right? What a money saver to not ever have to replace your dishes. Cleaning implements that were lightweight and easy to clean themselves. That was just the beginning of the things that we take for granted now that people saw for the first time ever at this plastics exposition. In August of 1955, Life magazine published a piece called Throwaway Living. I was lucky enough to find this thanks to the New York Public Library's digital archives, which took me to Google Books. I'm so grateful for libraries, and I'm so grateful that I can waste so much time looking at all these issues of Life magazine now. And I have to say, this was my first time really looking through an issue of Life. Like, I've always heard of Life magazine. I've seen covers. I've seen them at flea markets and antique malls, and I'm very aware of it, but I never really looked at an issue. Like every other magazine, it was full of ads. In fact, and maybe it just felt this way because I was looking at it on my screen, but it just felt like it was almost exclusively ads with a little bit of articles that kind of felt like ads. It was fascinating to me. Not unlike most magazines I read as a teenager, to be honest, which were mostly just selling me stuff too. But the ads in Life magazine in the 50s promised, quite frankly, a better life via buying the right products. And I mean, not even frankly, I mean, just like bluntly. We're used to these messages being somewhat more subtle now, but back then, advertising was just like, hey, we're just going to be blunt here. Buy this shit or be sad forever, or malnourished, or unpopular, or smell weird, or hurt your back making the bed. I mean, they were like really just like maybe overpromising a little bit. Like Carnation Instant Chocolate Breakfast promised happy, well-nourished children and the cost savings of being able to buy less milk. This was an ad in this issue of Life magazine from 1955. Sunkist, I guess they weren't in the orange juice biz quite yet, told people to drink the juice of one lemon in their water every morning to be smarter and full of energy. Cannon Sheets, now new in 1955 with elastic corners, would save housewives the hard work and strain of lifting the mattress. And it was loosely implied that then they would have more time to spend with their children, and then their children would have happier lives. Franco-American canned spaghetti and meatballs, guaranteed a meal that a family would love, perhaps even prefer, for less than the cost of making one's own spaghetti and meatballs. And it would be more nutritious and, yeah, easy, a win for everyone. I personally am just going to say, as a person who's had many cans of spaghetti in my lifetime, not since my childhood, but still many in my childhood as a latchkey child, I'm here to tell you I would rather have freshly made spaghetti and meatballs. And I don't even mean like getting out the pasta machine. I mean like just opening the box and boiling the pasta. Way better than canned spaghetti. Just saying here. If you disagree, tell me why and maybe recommend a brand to me. But anyway, here we are. Life magazine is like, buy all these things, have the best life ever. So it's no surprise to me that there was an article in Life telling people to get ready for better living through plastic. Imagine publishing an article now called Throwaway Living. It doesn't sound very appealing. Actually, I could see it as an article in like The Atlantic, and it would be talking about like why you shouldn't wear fast fashion or shop from Shein, right? It's ironic because, of course, we're still being sold tons of stuff every day that isn't intended to last long in our lives. And it's not just cleaning products and dishware, plastic clamshells of food. It is like electronics, furniture, cars, you name it. Anyway, the main photo of this piece, Throwaway Living, is a family surrounded by plastic and single-use items, including dishes, cutlery, tablecloths, diapers, napkins, a baby bib. That's kind of sad. I don't know. Foil pans, disposable curtains. Seriously, what the fuck? Why are we throwing away curtains? I don't know. Single-use buckets. Same question there. Single-use vases. Again, what the fuck? So much more, so many things. And the first sentence of the article says, quote, "The items flying through the air in this picture would take 40 minutes to clean, except that no housewife need bother. They are meant to be thrown away after use." And once again, if this were published today, it would be a startling expose about plastic waste, or at least I like to think. But this was meant to be like, get on board. The revolution is here. Try something new. Try some disposable curtains. Please don't do that. I'm saying that in the future. Please don't do that. Anyway, the rest of this article showed other latest innovations in disposability, including disposable pet bowls. I don't think that one caught on. Single-use foil bakeware, still going strong, still has a section in every U.S. grocery store. And a disposable barbecue grill, which I was talking about this with Justin, and we both swear that we have seen disposable barbecue grills somewhere, although we can't remember. I kind of feel like it was like at an outdoor store or something. Anyway, at the time, the idea of these disposable items was so wild and new that it would require a lot of advertising and fluffy press pieces, like the one in Life magazine, to get people on board with buying something that was intended for the trash after one use. I mean, we're talking like, why are you spending money on something that you throw away? It was anathema to anything people knew at that point. But all of that advertising, all of that positive press attention, it worked. Plastic production increased with each passing year. It's wild to see it on a graph. Check out the link in the show notes to see it yourself. I mean, it's just like a straight line up practically. And even wilder, 56% of the plastic ever made was produced in this century. And yeah, the rise of technology in our day-to-day lives has contributed, like we've got phone chargers and keyboards, printers, computers, gadgets of all varieties, all made of plastic, right? And we also know that single-use plastics are a key component of healthcare, syringes, PPE, etc. But it's also a big part of these single-use products, which are still kicking. Just think of all the Starbucks cups and lids, the plastic utensils you get at just about any restaurant, water and soda bottles, takeout packaging. When you start thinking about that, well, That's a lot of plastic. And 44% of the plastic produced each year is for packaging, whether it's for food or cleaning products or shampoo or toothpaste. It's plastics. It's intended to go in the trash when the product inside is used. It's like instant trash, basically. 7% of the plastic produced every year is for household use. And this is where we'll see like plastic containers and Solo cups and plastic cutlery, things like that. Plastic is big money. It's big money for companies that make it, and it's big money for the companies selling fossil fuels. In fact, going back to DuPont again, in 1981, I couldn't believe this. I mean, I couldn't believe it, but I can also believe it. The company bought Conoco Inc., a major gas and oil company. This gave the company its own steady supply of ingredients for making plastics at a low, low price. This also made DuPont, once again, this company that's making plastics and pesticides and Teflon coating and fabrics, it made it one of the top 10 US-based petroleum and natural gas producers and refiners. There's a lot more to learn about DuPont. I urge you, at the very least, to just go read the Wikipedia article about DuPont to hear all of the bad stuff this company has been involved with over the years, the bad products it's made. I could do a whole episode on that, but I'd probably end up being too depressed, and you'd probably get bored of me hearing me just talk about only depressing things. So, go check that out. But anyway, here we have this huge company that makes all these synthetic materials, also now kind of owning the primary ingredient in these materials. The reality is you can't have plastic without oil. And it's no wonder that these two industries colluded for decades to hide the reality of plastic recycling from us. That reality, in case you haven't heard, is that only 9% of the plastic ever made, and I mean ever made since the beginning of plastic, has ever been recycled. 9%. 19% has been incinerated. The rest is in the landfill. That's 72%, by the way. Plastic recycling is essentially a myth because most plastic fibers can only be recycled one time at most, and virgin, brand new fibers usually need to be added in order to prevent the plastic from falling apart. And I will tell you, the vast majority of Americans do not know this fact about plastic, and if they did, it might change some of their decisions, honestly. This is still niche information. So if you really want to blow minds at your next party or barbecue or place where people get invited, bring this up. Let me know how it goes. But most people do not know this, and we're all doing a lot of like wish cycling, basically, when we sort our recycling every week. Anyway, it's fascinating to look at advertising of the 50s and 60s that focus specifically on plastic products. All, much like those ads in Life magazine, they promise housewives a better life, right? That they will keep their family safer and they'll save time and they'll save money by using plastic wrap and plastic cups and plastic plates and so on. And people would think that they were smart for opting for plastics, which is interesting in itself because we think about generations of women not being respected as like, real humans with deep thoughts and talents and intellectual things to bring to the table, right? They were told like the only thing they should bring to the table is food, right? So here we are, like women have this opportunity to be seen as the smartest, best wife and best mother by buying plastic stuff. Foods wrapped in plastic wrap were guaranteed to be fresher and more desirable. Plastic containers were easier to clean, and anything difficult to clean, like bakeware, could just be tossed out. Over time, these ads became fact to many of us. Paper plates are convenient. Plastic utensils do seem cleaner. Food wrapped in plastic does seem fresher. And now we're like, what, 3-4 generations deep into the single-use plastic way of life? We don't know any differently. And like I said, most of us don't know the reality of what's happening to those plastics when we're done with them. When we're done using them for this just tiny amount of time in comparison to the lifespan of these materials. And we have to admit it. There's something appealing about like a nice cellophane wrapped package of paper napkins that have a special print or color for your event. Who, raise your hand, has ever had fun picking out the plates and the cups and the tablecloth and the napkins and the party hats for your birthday party, right? Like there's something about it. It's exciting, right? Ziploc bags do feel kind of luxurious and convenient. And when you use them, you feel like you are making this smart decision to make your food last longer and save it from making you sick, right? Red Solo cups mean easier cleanup and having more fun before and after the party. When you really think about these things that have been sold to us for now generations, we've been told that the smartest decision we can make, the most clever and creative and appealing decision we can make as individuals is to buy, well, when I say it out loud, it gets really depressing, is to buy single-use plastic items, right? It's just out there. It's normalized too, you know? Ultimately, throwaway living was a scam. It is a scam. It was a great way to make a small group of people really rich. It was an exceptional way to pollute our planet and fuel climate change. But did it make our lives more convenient? Even going back to that Life article where it would have saved a housewife 40 minutes to not have to wash the disposable curtains and vases and all the other things in the picture, I was like, I don't know if, 40 minutes is really that much time in the grand scheme of things if we're also putting curtains and vases in with the dishes. Is it really that much of a win? Are we really happier with plastic cups and those disposable cleaning wipes? The thing is, just because something seems like it has always, in quotes, been done a certain way, and it's the, in quotes, only way to do things, well, we know that's not true. In fact, I just told you that plastic disposable stuff wasn't always the way people lived. And now we have this amazing opportunity to find new solutions, new ways of doing things that, well, might not actually be that new. In this one way, when we talk about moving away from plastics, we're kind of just saying like, hey, why don't we go back to the way some things used to be, even though there were many other things of that era that we do not want to bring into this future. But, maybe the thing where we wash dishes is one of them. What can we do as individuals to break up with these disposable items? Well, one is that we can opt for reusable items like cleaning towels and rags rather than paper towels and those wipes that come in the plastic containers, which, by the way, give me a horrible rash. If you, like me, have worked in an office where those are the only cleaning products provided, you could ask if the company can offer a less wasteful option for keeping the office clean. And honestly, it will probably cost them less money. You can look for food that has the least amount of packaging. In my opinion, that feels impossible sometimes. It is a particularly challenging area for me, but Dustin and I are always trying by shopping in bulk sections at stores and buying things that come in simpler packaging and trying to avoid convenience food, which of course means we have to spend a lot more time cooking and cleaning. It's a trade-off for sure. You could also consider using refillable products and visiting a refillery instead of buying items in disposable plastic packaging. This can be great for cleaning products and cosmetics and soaps and many, many other things, cooking oils, honey, syrup, all kinds of things. Or you could try a company like Vellum Street, which is I'm a big fan of, that packages everything in upcycled glass vessels. That feels like a better choice. Maybe you're doing a mix of all of these things. You could also, for events, do like what we did for the Jamboree and use actual plates, utensils, and fabric napkins and mugs and all that stuff. If you don't have enough on your own, you could borrow from your friends or family. And yes, you're going to need to wash dishes. Maybe your friends will help you. Maybe you'll all joke and laugh and have a great time while you're doing it. The most important thing you can do is brag about what you are doing to other people. Lead by example. Show them that there is this different way of doing things that isn't arduous or miserable or even, God forbid, unaesthetic. So thank you to Cookie Crumble for sending me down this rabbit hole of research, a journey into plastics and capitalism and post-war American culture. This stuff fascinates me. I think a lot about how selling the idea of convenience to American housewives in the 50s and 60s via, appliances and instant foods and disposable items also allowed other industries to pop up to sell women diet pills and makeup and more clothes and even cookbooks that would help you make complicated dishes out of instant foods in disposable cookware. Jell-O molds and elaborate cake mix cakes. You know what I'm talking about. If you are American, at some point you have had one of these foods, probably at a family gathering. It's definitely something I'd like to dig into in a future episode of the podcast because, like I said, this is on my mind a lot. So let me know if that's interesting to you, and maybe that's something I can bring to you later this year. If you want to share your experiences with plastic cups and disposable cleaning wipes in your country, drop me an email or an audio message at amanda@clotheshorse.world. All right. Now let's talk about another thing that we can do as individuals within our community that can really change the status quo of shop, then wear, then donation bin or landfill. And that's clothing swaps. So let's meet Sam. All right. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
All right. So hi there. I'm Sam. I'm the co-founder of BeReworn. I'm proudly Latina. I love fashion. I used to collect magazines since I was 11 years old. And I love to play Nintendo in my free time.
I mean, these are all things I agree with. What's your favorite Nintendo game?
I love to play Smash. And then I became a fan of Overcooked, but it was like ruining my marriage. So we stopped playing. It was too intense.
I understand that. I feel like there was a period a few years ago, I was really into Katamari Damacy, and it was sort of ruining our marriage because I just wanted to play that game and I didn't want to watch TV or do anything with my husband but play that game. And it was a one-person game, so it was, very, very not coupley.
No, I know. And then like both of us are very competitive and it gets just
no.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about BeReworn? What is it? What do you do? Why did you start it?
Yeah, so you can think of us as Eventbrite, but just for sustainability.
Okay.
So I wanted to build a place where people can connect with more people that has the same interests or hobbies. Because for me, I feel like even we have social media, we have so many apps, there wasn't a place where I could engage with a community that was like passionate about the same things that I was doing without being so like intense. I feel like if you go to Instagram or you go to Facebook and you make a post, it's kind of like too invasive.
Yeah.
So I wanted like to create something smaller, something more niche. Also, when I was moving around different cities, I'm original from Mexico. I wanted to start living a more sustainable life. And I wanted to start with my closet because that was one of the things I'm most passionate about. But I was having one of my first jobs and I couldn't afford any sustainable brands. They were just out of my reach. And then thrifting became a little bit more expensive over the years, I felt. So I wanted to, get to know other options. And one of my friends introduced me to a clothing swap. And I realized it was like a small circle group of people where I can actually like have interactions in person, especially like after COVID. I realized how my social abilities changed. I wasn't I never been an extrovert, but after pandemic, I was just like a different person.
Same. I feel like for me, it was like, oh, it turns out I am an introvert and I really enjoy being alone. And then it was really hard to go back and like get back into the real world.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I just felt like I was always in the middle, but after pandemic, I was like, I'm definitely like an introvert, like 100%.
Same, yeah. Definitely.
So yeah, I just like, it worked great for me. It helped me make some friends. I mean, I've been trying like also dating apps for friends, like Bumble BFF or something like that. And it just takes a lot of time. And right now, because we have so much access to, I'm going to sound like a grandma, but to internet stuff, it's so easy to get ghosted on. Like,
wait, okay. Were people ghosting you as a friend too?
Yes.
Oh, wow. We have like, seriously, society is falling apart.
Exactly. Yeah, because I feel like you make a profile and then you're letting everyone know what your passion, like your hobbies are about, who you are, where you come from, where you're living. And then you make a match because apparently you both like each other as enough to be friends or to get to know. And then people is like, yeah, you know what? Like, this is a lot of work. So I'm just going to disappear.
Oh, man, I hate all of us.
Dude, yes. Especially like when moving, like, I feel like every time you move to a new city, you have more like, you have the drive to meet new people.
Totally.
So you're like really like putting an effort on it, like making the time. And sometimes people don't get that. And that's kind of like disappointing. And that's why people feel ashamed to like to reach out to someone in a public place or to make new friends. That's why it's so hard.
Yeah, it's really, really hard.
So yeah, like during clothing swaps, like through them, I met some amazing people. And then I wanted to continue going to more, but I didn't know where to find them because the one that my friend found, it was just like on Eventbrite. So we didn't really like have access like of the host or to even like know when was the next one. And since I've been working for startups, and then I just was like, let me put my two passions together, like fashion and technology. I started this, I got the idea like on 2020. Then of course, pandemic just like killed my dream. And I stand up and I was like, all right, let's try it again. I moved to Detroit, which is where I currently live right now. And I moved here because my husband is from here. So while I was waiting for my green card, government told me you cannot work and you cannot go out of the country to visit your family. You have to stay here and wait. So I was like, all right, what am I going to do? Like winters in Michigan are crazy and I have no friends.
Yeah, no, I was wondering. I didn't want to bring it up, but I was wondering how you felt about your first winter there.
No, yes, I mean, where I come from is the desert. So it was like, wow, I was in a multiverse. I'm like, oh my goodness. And yeah, my husband was traveling for work. I had no friends. And I was sitting here in this apartment, like winter storm outside. And I was like, I'm going to like just go crazy. Like there's not enough hobbies I can have to like just be enough for me to stay in this place 24 hours without talking to a human being.
I feel this, like so much sympathy for you because I've been in such similar situations because I move around so much. Like this is just way too familiar to me.
Yeah. And then I told myself, you know what? I'm going to host my own clothing swap because apps are not working. I don't want to go to bars and just, like feel intimidated to talk to people. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to invite my husband and a friend in case no one comes. So at least we can like 3 people hanging out there with a bunch of clothes. Yeah. So I made an Instagram and I just like started to like post about myself. I did not get like a lot of followers at the beginning and I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I was like, is it too late to like, like change my mind and maybe not do this? But
Right.
anyway, I keep going and like there was this like dive bar that had a huge backyard here in Detroit. It's called the Old Miami. So I was like, they told me like, yeah, you can bring your like hangers and you can just do whatever you want. And I'm like, okay. So I made like all the ads and the flyers with more than 1 month in advance to be like, I wanted to make sure that I was like letting people know with enough time so they can actually put me in their calendars. And then 2 weeks before the event, no one like registered. I was just an Eventbrite.
Oh my gosh. This is like giving me a stomach ache for you.
Yes. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wait. And then it was like 1 week before and I had like 2 people. And they like just registered with their email. I didn't even know their names. And I'm like, okay. So I bought a couple racks and I got some hangers from like people I knew. And one day, like 2 days before the event, people started to register. Either like through Instagram or like to Eventbrite. And I was like, I can finally breathe. I can do this. And yeah, it was great. People like just came. They brought like amazing stuff. And they were like starting asking me when I was going to do the next one. And a lot of people from Facebook also started reaching out that they were trying to meet more people, but they were like too shy to just, we go back to the same like square one to make a post or just ask someone out. So yeah, I started to do this month by month. And that's when I told myself, I'm going to make this happen. So I want BeReworn to be a place where you host any type of event as long as they are related to sustainability. Right now we started with 2 categories, which are clothing swaps and upcycling workshops. And we just introduced a new one called Community Meetup, because I realized sometimes we don't have clothes and people still wants to meet. So yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, I think that is true that, one of my favorite things about things like clothing swaps or any other real like sustainability related event, like mending, like craft workshops, dye workshops, things like that. It's less about like what you actually do when you're there. And it's more about just like talking to other people. Like it is because I feel like, the more you like move through adulthood, especially after you get married or partner off with someone or move to new places or get really busy with your job or all of these things at once, it's like really, really hard to meet people.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was a time in my life, obviously in school you meet a lot of your fellow students become your friends, or, your first few jobs, like you become friends with your coworkers, or like I remember a time when I could just like go to a bar or a show and I would just meet people. But like we don't live in that time anymore.
Yes,
and
no, for sure.
It's really, really hard to connect with other people who share your interests and passions. So I love that that's an option. What kind of challenges do you think? Because obviously, like, here you are, you're trying to put together like these swaps and you're already like, facing these obstacles of like knowing people to come, people not committing in advance, all of those things, right? What challenges do you think really hold people back from throwing a clothing swap of their own?
I feel like the first one is like, are people actually like gonna come to my event?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, the fear is real.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, honestly, like when people tells me that, I always tell them that is a possibility and that it's like, you're going to feel it because I still feel it. And I've been hosting for a year. And people always love to get their ticket or whatever, like hours before the event or days before the event when you give them a month.
Yeah, why is that? Like as you were telling about your first experience and, 3 weeks out, no one has registered, 2 weeks out, no one has registered, suddenly a week later, people are showing up. why do people wait so long? You probably don't have an answer there, but I feel like I have this conversation over and over again with all my friends who throw different kinds of events and workshops that unfortunately people aren't going to commit until the last minute, which feels really rude of all of us to do that.
I'm like, yes, just for my for my peace, inner peace. But I mean, what I heard is that people likes to plan what they're doing like a couple days before when the weekend is coming closer. That's what I heard like most. But I also like, I feel that you know you're going to do it, like you see the event and you save it somewhere in your phone. And then you put a reminder and you buy it one day before. Like, you know, you're going, you just like, you know, like delaying it. Like you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it soon.
So stressful for the person who's throwing the event though. So, you know, obviously everybody who throws an event like this goes through the feelings of what if no one shows up, right? Fear we all have. And then of course no one signs up in advance. So that fear grows and grows with each passing day. What do you tell people who are worrying about that? And what do you tell them if no one really does show up? Because that's, I don't know. I had a birthday party for my 10th birthday and no one showed up. And that was a long time ago, but that fear still lives within me.
No, I mean, like I said, like I always tell them that is for sure an option. Like that's something that could happen. But I feel like people also respect resilience. Like it, for some reason, you know, no one came to your event. Like I know how it's going to feel because I've been there to other type of events. But apparently I don't learn my lesson.
Right.
But I feel like people watch, you know, like, and maybe like everything needs to have a process and it needs to grow. And maybe the first time you got one person or no one came and you try again and you get 10 people next time. Right. Because, you know, life happens too. And what I have learned is like the event industry, we are relying on people's time all the time, no matter what we do, no matter what marketing, like advertisement we're doing. Even if we tell people there are limited spot, people won't care.
No, it's true. I've tried all of these things. This is all very real.
Yeah. So we just have to wait for people to make up their minds. That's how the event industry is right now. I mean, there is like, I'll say, for example, right now from the people that comes to the swaps, after 4 months, I started to see there's like a 10% of same faces I keep seeing. And they normally tend to buy faster. So I feel like if you are persistent, people are going to be persistent too.
I think that's great advice because I mean, there's something very vulnerable about hosting something like this. You know, hosting any kind of event. I mean, I've been through that too. It's very scary and you feel like you're really putting yourself out there. And I think we all have a deep fear of rejection. And the idea that people might not come feels like rejection, even though it might just be that everybody was busy that weekend or everybody had COVID or, you know, just, it could be many, many things. But I also think, and this is something, you know, when I talk to people about clothing swaps, I would say like half the people I talk to are like, oh yeah, I love that idea, or I've been to one or a bunch and it's really great. It's my favorite thing. Or on the other side, people are like, I'm afraid to go because I'm afraid I'm going to be disappointed, or I went one time and I was disappointed. There was nothing for me. How do you, as a host of a clothing swap, ensure that people aren't disappointed when they do come?
Yes, so that's one of the reasons why we are building the app right now, because I've been through that and I also been the host that has to tell someone, hey, I'm sorry that we don't have your size and you brought so many cute stuff.
Right.
And you're leaving like empty-handed. Because they're amazing humans, like people, like they comes to these events, they will leave their clothes, even they didn't take anything back home. And so what we're doing, like, to approach that is on the app, you're going to be able as a host to select what sizes you want in your event. But also as a user, you're going to be able to choose what sizes you are bringing. So when you go to the event, you see like 50% of the attendees who already bought a ticket are bringing size M. this percent of people are bringing size L. This percent of people are bringing this size. So the user has the opportunity to choose if this event is for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we don't want them to just like if we try, we can never guarantee 100%, but this way we can guarantee like a 99% that you know what people are bringing and you feel more confident about it.
I mean, that's great. That's so smart, because I would say most of the concerns I hear about people who either are afraid to go to a clothing swap or have gone and had a negative experience is either I got there and there was nothing in my size, / I'm afraid I'll go and there'll be nothing in my size, or the other fear that people have is that I'm afraid I'm going to bring all these nice things and no one else will. And then there will be nothing for me. I'll have like sort of put more into it than I get out of it. What do you do to, I don't know, calm that fear for people who might have that?
Yes. So I actually had that fear too, as a host and as a like attendee, as a swapper. And what I want to do right now, which is, it's not going to be done by the end of this year, but early next year, is that when you get your ticket or you sign up for a swap, there's going to be like a virtual swap closet where you can choose from 2 to 3 items of what you're bringing. Some people can see it, because that way people feels compromised. If everyone's seeing like, oh, everyone's bringing a nice pair of jeans or a nice dress, I have to bring something nice too. So it's more like about inspiration.
I mean, that's a really good idea. Because also, like, what if everybody else is bringing like jeans and t-shirts, you know, like more basic things, and you show up with like only going out dresses or something? It might feel like not a good fit either, you know? So I love the idea of people being able to sort of show kind of maybe like the best things that they're bringing. Do you ever do swaps or recommend that swaps sort of have like a theme? Like, okay, today we're going to only bring, this is like fall clothing, or this is sweaters, or this is holiday clothing, or things like that, because that seems to be, especially when we talk about things like holiday clothes or dress up clothes for weddings and things like that, that people feel this pressure to have a lot of new stuff to wear for events, but they also feel this pressure to not wear it more than once. And so most of the stuff doesn't get worn more than once. Have you ever done anything like that or recommend that?
Yes, I do recommend it, and I do it because, for example, last year in October, I made like a general swap and I got a lot of costumes, like Halloween costumes.
Oh, no.
And I was like, maybe next year what I need to do is to do a regular, like, whatever team swap and another swap for Halloween costumes, which is great too, because, you know, a lot of people buy costumes every year and they never use them again.
Exactly. No, I think a Halloween costume swap is a great idea.
Yes. I mean, that's what we're going to do this year. And I also like, when it comes to quality, right now that we don't have it on the app yet for you to be able to have this preview, is that I do like to check the clothing personally, because, you know, sometimes like either people knows or they don't know, I don't know, but like they come with like yellow spots, or they're like the zipper is ripped or something. And like, you know, why are you like bringing it? Like, we can do something with the fabric, but don't just go and hang it there like it's in a nice condition.
Yeah, that's rude. Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it sounds like really what's important is to kind of, the more detailed information and more sort of like rules you can have for a clothing swap, the more likely it is to be successful, meaning that like everybody walks away feeling good and no one feels like they brought nice clothes and left with Halloween costumes. Let's take a moment to thank some of the incredible small businesses who keep Clotheshorse going via their generous Patreon support. Selena Sanders, a social impact brand that specializes in upcycled clothing using only reclaimed, vintage, or thrifted materials, from tea towels, linens, blankets, and quilts. Sustainably crafted in Los Angeles, each piece is designed to last in one's closet for generations to come. Maximum style, minimal carbon footprint. Shift clothing out of beautiful Astoria, Oregon, with a focus on natural fibers, simple hardworking designs, and putting fat people first. Discover more at shiftwheeler.com. Late to the party, creating one-of-a-kind statement clothing from vintage, salvaged, and thrifted textiles. They hope to tap into the dreamy memories we all hold. Floral curtains, a childhood dress, the wallpaper in your best friend's rec room, all while creating modern, sustainable garments that you'll love wearing and have for years to come. Late to the Party is passionate about celebrating and preserving textiles, the memories they hold, and the stories they have yet to tell. Check them out on Instagram at Late to the Party People. Vino Vintage, based just outside of LA. We love the hunt of shopping secondhand because you never know what you might find. Catch us at flea markets around Southern California by following us on Instagram at vino.vintage so you don't miss our next event. Dylan Page is an online clothing and lifestyle brand based out of St. Louis, Missouri. Our products are chosen with intention for the conscious community. Everything we carry is animal-friendly, ethically made, sustainably sourced, and cruelty-free. Dylan Page is for those who never stop questioning where something comes from. We know that personal experience dictates what's sustainable for you, and we are here to help guide and support you to make choices that fit your needs. Check us out at dylanpage.com and find us on Instagram at dylanpagelife&style. Salt Hats, purveyors of truly sustainable hats, hand-blocked, sewn, and embellished in Detroit, Michigan. Find us on Instagram at Salt Hats. Gentle Vibes Vintage. We are purveyors of polyester and psychedelic relics. We encourage experimentation and play not only in your wardrobe, but in your home too. We have thousands of killer vintage pieces ready for their next adventure. See them all on Instagram at Gentle Vibes Vintage. Thumbprint is Detroit's only fair trade marketplace, located in the historic Eastern Market. Our small business specializes in products handmade by empowered women in South Africa, making a living wage, creating things they love like hand-painted candles and ceramics. We also carry a curated assortment of sustainable and natural locally made goods. Thumbprint is a great gift destination for both the special people in your life and for yourself. Browse our online store at thumbprintdetroit.com and find us on Instagram at thumbprintdetroit. Vagabond Vintage DTLV is a vintage clothing, accessories, and decor reselling business based in downtown Las Vegas, Nevada. Not only do we sell in Las Vegas, but we're also located throughout resale markets in San Francisco, as well as at a curated boutique called Lux and Ivy, located in Indianapolis, Indiana. Jessica, the founder and owner of Vagabond Vintage DTLV, recently opened the first IRL location located in the Arts District of downtown Las Vegas on August 5th. The shop has a strong emphasis on 60s and 70s garments, single-stitch tees, and dreamy loungewear. Follow them on Instagram at Vagabond Vintage DTLV and keep an eye out for their website coming fall of 2022. I thought we could talk about sort of your advice for putting together a good clothing swap. So first is like, how do you schedule this? Like, how far in advance should you do it? And are there days of the week that are better?
Yes. So I always think Saturdays or Sundays are the best days for a swap because people like in the middle of the week, if you work from home, okay, you have more opportunities to get your like clothes sorted and everything. But if you're coming from the office, like you have to bring everything together. It's just most complicated because I have tried to do it in a Wednesday before and it didn't work right. And after asking for two other hosts and people, everyone prefers to do it early on the weekends. So people can come and like just get a coffee, like hang out. I normally recommend between like 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Because sometimes also like later on the weekends, people tends to have more plans.
Yeah, this is true. I was thinking about like even, I don't know if you have found that maybe summer swaps aren't as successful as fall and winter ones because people are doing so much stuff during the summer.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Like summer is a really hard time for like, I will say events in general because you have to compete with so many events out there. It's literally like a competition, like come to mine. Like, no, we don't want to be doing that. That's exhausting. That's when I feel like community also like helps a lot, because what I have found about this slow fashion community is that we are 100% in. Like people, like, it's more like aware of your time and the work that it's behind a clothing swap versus a person that's coming to the first swap.
I mean, that is such a good point. People who are part of the slow fashion community already have this idea of the labor and the value of it, but people who've never come before think that you just go in and it's like you throw all the stuff on the floor and everyone digs around. I mean, I can imagine that if you've never been to a clothing swap, it's like not something you're super familiar with. Maybe you don't have a lot of friends who do it, that you imagine it as this wild, frenzied free-for-all where there's just clothes flying through the air and people are rolling around on the ground and fighting, like two people pulling on the same garment at once and it gets ripped in half. It sounds very chaotic, right? But it would seem to me that really the best clothing swaps are actually going to have a lot of planning and sort of like, I don't know, like rules behind them.
Yes. I mean, I know you asked me for like, what's the best advice? Like what are the steps to do a clothing swap? And I went all over the place. But another thing that I think it's also very interesting that it's happening right now with swaps is that people are creating these swap categories, which is not even just a theme anymore. It's not just about like summer clothing or jeans or sweater swap. It's more about like an upscale swap versus just a general type of swap, which is what we know. And this is more like a smaller group of people. And what I have seen is like, oh, let's bring like prom dresses or dresses night. And then they do this cute dinner and there's like 15 people in the room just like sharing their prom dress and like having a deeper connection, more like an experience. And I feel like that's very interesting because sometimes also we go back to the same thing, which if swaps are really crowded, it can also be intimidating. Like,
yeah, for sure. So do you think a smaller group is best? What do you think is the best number of people?
My favorite type of swap is the swap between 15 people and 60 or 70 people. That's my favorite like amount.
Okay. That could be pretty, 60 people is a lot for sure.
Yeah. I feel like it gives you enough space to walk around. You don't have to fight to see their clothes and you can still hang out like and stay there if you want to. There's like larger swaps and I think they're great, but I'm sure like it's a different type, like it has to be a different type of market. For example, I don't do very good at like festivals because I get a little bit intimidated, like just to like get in the middle of a huge crowd. So just in general, like everything I do, I try to go to less crowded places, but it's a personal preference.
So where is like the best kind of place to have an event like this? Like, should you do it at home or, like a back patio at a bar or try to rent a space? What do you recommend?
So I think the first like step for the swap is always to just choose a date, because even when you need to find a venue, they're going to ask you when you want to do it.
True.
So yeah, first is the date and then is the venue. For terms of safety, I do not like to encourage to say do it at home, but it's like very depending on, every person, how they feel about like sharing their address with random people or,
That's true. That is very true. I didn't even think of that you might feel uncomfortable sharing your address with people you don't know. And they're just going to come to your house.
Yeah. And I mean, after the swap is over, they still know where you live.
Yeah, which is weird. Yeah. Now that you mention it, it sounds really creepy.
I mean, that's how I feel. I'm like I'm not moving after the swap. So yeah. Right. So I would recommend like sometimes what I really love to do, and I encourage people to do, it's like to support small businesses. Sometimes they're like small coffee shops. They're like, cool, need an extra hand, or they're just open to have more like events and invite people to do different stuff while they have a coffee. That's what I've been doing. And sometimes when people reach out to me like, hey, I want to do my first time like clothing swap, but I have no place, I help them to reach out to like small coffee shops, and it works. I feel like owners can be very, very friendly. You just have to ask.
I mean, I think that is such a good idea. A coffee shop, I hadn't even thought of that. Most of the clothing swaps I've ever been to have been really small, and it was within our friend group. So it was at a friend's house, or really large scale ones that were sort of like in a venue, like a club sort of venue. And they were huge and very overwhelming, and like not my scene at all. Did not enjoy it. So I do think like a coffee shop is the right balance, because it's just the right amount of size and it supports local business, and it's also not at your house. Have you found that it can be difficult to explain to these businesses like what a clothing swap is, and how do you approach them with like, hey, I'd like to put on a clothing swap here?
Yes, I think sometimes it is hard to just like explain the concept, especially when someone like doesn't have a clue what is it. But I always just let them know, like, I start with the use of the space, and I bring it up as a collaboration, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. Like, even though they're letting you use their space, people that comes to a swap, especially if they have to wait for more people to bring clothing, they love to hang out around, and they get a coffee and they get like a snack or whatever. So that's how I say it. Like, listen, like, I've been hosting, like, well, if you haven't been hosting, you have to say that. You can just say like, I have this idea where people comes here to like exchange clothes they no longer wear, to get new clothes. I will be using this part of your space if you allow me to. And people normally like, I put a number on the people I want to have. Like, I will expect to have between 10 and 25 people. And all that people needs to wait for everyone to like choose a clothing. And then that's when I go to the part where like, yeah, people love to have a coffee and wait around here. They love to hang out. And we support like on social media as well, which, like I said, it depends on the business, what they're looking for. I love to ask like if they have like any requirements or something that they would like to see out of the event. So yeah, I feel like it's just a conversation. Like, what do you need? How can I help you? This is what I need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that seems pretty straightforward. And, you know, it's not like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like you need that much space, or people are going to be really rowdy or destructive or anything like that. And, you know, if everybody shows up and buys a coffee and maybe a pastry, that's a really busy day for a coffee shop. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes also, now that you mentioned that, like, we always ask, like, between Sunday or Saturday, like, within these hours, when is the time frame where you get less people?
That's a good
And
question.
then we use that time.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So that they're not like, well, actually, we're really busy on Saturdays, and now we're going to lose all this business because our normal customers won't have space. So, okay, so that's the venue, right? How do you, I mean, I guess this is the right term here. How do you market an event to make sure that everybody knows about it? Because, I mean, you know, like, it's really, really hard to get people to see your stuff on social media. And it's going to take a lot more work than just doing one post about it. What do you recommend people do?
So that is one of the reasons that we created BeReworn. So we can like help with that and give you a little push, because I saw this meme the other day that says, in 2024, every business owner has to be a content creator.
Yep.
And I'm like, yes, I feel so seen. And even the thing is, like, even when you try to become this content creator, there's not enough reach. Reach takes time.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, like I said, I'm always open, and I would love to like help anyone that's willing to host their own, like their first clothing swap or their second, third, whatever. And once they're on our side, we can help them like through social media. We can help to spread the word. We just have this community ambassador program in different cities. And sometimes that can also like helps people to grow the trust, you know, because also if you just create like a new Instagram page and people goes to see that it's new, people sometimes get scared. Just like, I don't know much about you. Like, is this your first time hosting? Like, I'm going to wait for your next event to see how it goes.
Yes, that's true too. Because I think also they already are nervous about events, but then they're also nervous about clothing swaps.
Yes, there's just so many factors that like you have to like check mark on your list, and it's very intimidating, and it can be a lot of work, especially being your first time or if you are the only one hosting it, because at the end of the day it's work. So I always recommend to have volunteers because they play such a like key role in the organization of a swap. And people that normally volunteers for like clothing swaps is people that already cares.
True.
And they already know something about it.
Right.
So they're more willing to help you, and you don't have to like explain from 1 to 10.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Because that's another thing, right? Like having a clothing swap is, it's more than just everybody comes in and throws all of their stuff on the floor and people dig through it. Like, what are best practices like for running the clothing swap as it's actually happening? And do you need any equipment to do that?
Yes. So, I mean, there is, like I said, it's a personal preference. There's people that just have tables and you can just go and put your clothes there. There's not a lot of control. I do recommend racks just because it's easier for people to see the clothes, and at the same time that makes it faster. Like if everything is just on a pile on a table, it takes longer and people have to wait to find a spot to see the clothes.
Right.
But I know like that equipment can be like an upfront, like cash that you don't always want to invest. Because imagine you're doing this for free and then you have to buy all these things. Like you're basically like just wasting money. Not wasting, but like you're not making money. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, you're losing money for sure. Yeah, if you're doing this for free and then you have to go buy clothing racks and hangers. So is it normal for people to charge entry to a clothing swap, or am I being really greedy?
No, I feel like it started like as a free thing, but lately, like the past couple months, everyone is charging a ticket like price. I have seen I think the average like ticket price right now is from $12 to $15 to $25.
Okay.
That's what I have seen. I have seen like a little bit more expensive ones, but it's normally because it includes something else like a coffee or a drink, or it's like it has like an add-on. And when it comes to this equipment, what we're doing right now is that we cover those expenses.
Okay.
If the host like compromises to at least host like 2 or 3 clothing swaps. Because at the end of the day, my mission is always to grow the community. Like I want more, like people think like I'm crazy when I say like I want swap to be the go-to when you think about getting something new. And I know we're far from that reality right now. But it's a seed, like you have to plant it, you have to take care of it. And I feel like if we just like spread the word and find a way where everyone feels included and not ashamed, because me included, I've done the mistake where if someone doesn't know about sustainability and they're talking about fast fashion brands, I just go and jump.
Right. You can't do that, even though it's really hard. Trust me, one of the members of the co-working space that I belong to is an Amazon influencer. And that's really challenging for me because that's sort of the opposite of everything that I do. And a couple of weeks ago, I hosted this like slow fashion sustainability bingo event, and he came and he was playing the game. And there were a few times where he was like just completely bewildered by things and was like talking about how he gets stuff from Amazon. And rather than being like, I can't believe, do you know about Amazon? It's so evil, blah, blah, blah. I just was like listened to him, and engaged with him and was like, oh, that's really interesting. Well, like if you get your jeans from Amazon, here's a way you can make them last longer. Or, have you ever thought about getting them tailored? There's this dry cleaner down the street. Like, rather than yelling at him, or making him feel bad. And I actually felt like my husband and I were talking about it later. We were like, that was a really productive situation that could have gone really awry because, he's an Amazon influencer. Like, that's how he makes a living, is getting people to buy stuff on Amazon.
Yeah, I think what you did is very clever, and I do admire your patience and self-control.
It's hard. It's hard sometimes, trust me.
Because you see, like, I struggle with that like a lot, and I've been getting better at it, but it's practice, I guess. I tell myself, like, listen, like, that is not going to take us anywhere because then people get scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so I will say I got lost with my intensity of this, but let's do a recap. So I will say the first step to host a clothing swap is to have a date.
Okay.
Even if it's not the final date, just have a time frame where you would like to host it.
Okay.
Then find a venue. You can either go and ask to a small local business, or you can ask one of your friends if they know someone, or you can just, if you feel comfortable, yes, you can do it at your backyard. It's like we talk, it's a personal preference. And then I will say it's better. You don't have to. It's better when you put a limit on a amount of items you can bring to the swap.
Okay, that's a good call out because this is only sort of related, but I don't know if you've ever gone to the Buffalo Exchange or Crossroads, one of those places like buy, sell, trade clothing places. And people will come in with those huge IKEA bags full of stuff. And I can assume that if you show up at a clothing swap with a huge IKEA bag of clothing, you're expecting to leave with a huge IKEA bag of different clothing. How could that mess everything up?
I feel like if you bring a lot of clothes, everyone in that room knows that you're not going to choose the same amount you brought. And that you, low-key are trying just to, get rid of the clothes.
Yes.
Because that can happen too. And then the host is the one that feels overwhelmed at the end of the event with all these leftover clothing.
Yes, I hadn't even thought of that. And then the host has to figure out what to do with all those clothes that no one wanted.
Yes. Yeah. So I would say put a limit. I think 15 items are enough. It's good. If you have more than that, just come to the next one or host your own or something like that. But I feel 15 works, at least for me and other people that I've been talking to. It's an enough refresh, wardrobe refresh. 15 items for the next month, I think is
a lot.
A good number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good call out.
Yeah. And also the amount of people that you want to have also helps, especially if you are hosting in a local shop, they're definitely going to have a limit of the people that you can bring in. So that helps. But if you're doing it in a more open space and you want to do for some reason refreshments or anything, you will like to know how many people you're expecting.
Yes. That's great. So, okay, so you choose your venue and how many people can come and what they're allowed to bring. And then you have to sort of start promoting it, getting people to sign up for it. How far in advance should you announce it? Because it seems like, we know people are going to wait until last minute, which is terrible. But I also, feel like you want to give people enough time to mark their calendars and to, pull out of their closet what they want to bring. So what do you think is the best amount of time in advance to announce a clothing swap?
At least worst case scenario, 1 month. Okay. But I would recommend 1.5.
Okay.
And to start planning behind the the scenes and everything 2 months. Just because something always comes last second. There's always something extra thing that you need to figure out, or I don't know. But yeah, so I would say personally 2 months, to the public 1.5 months.
I think that sounds like the perfect amount of time, because if you do it too far in advance, people just ignore it. I feel like when you do it too close in, no one's ready, or they're like, oh, I already had plans that weekend. So that seems like a good amount of time. So one way people can announce this and, get people to sign up is by using your platform, BeReworn, right? If that's not an option where you live, where do you suggest people announce this and sort of get people set up? Because I personally probably wouldn't recommend Eventbrite because it costs money. Is there somewhere else people could try to do something like that?
I will recommend, sometimes there's city type of advertisements that are free if you reach out to them.
Okay.
I don't know, what to do in LA this weekend type of page. Sometimes people feels like they need to go to the one with 1 million followers. Please don't do that. They're going to charge you money and it's just basically a waste of your time. Goes to maybe find a little content, small content creator that's passionate about sustainability and give them a ticket for free if you're charging. And just ask them if they will be willing to, promote the event for you, and you can give them 2 or 3 tickets so he or she or they can bring a friend along with them.
That's such a good idea.
I feel like that's community, empowerment as well.
Mm-hmm.
People understands and appreciates that. And when it comes to different cities, we are available in the whole US. We right now on our website, you can see we're just we have swaps in only certain cities, and that's because we haven't found someone else that's willing to host in a different city.
Ooh.
So it's more about if you are if you live in Alabama and you want to do it, you can always reach out to my email or to our Instagram account, and we can try our best to support you either with equipment. I love to do one-on-one sessions. They're completely free. I feel sometimes people has a list of things they want to ask me in 20 minutes, and that helps them a lot and helps me as well for research. So I love to do that. And I love to meet people. I talk a lot, so. Yeah.
There you go. So that's great. No, I love that people can reach out to you, because if you've never thrown a clothing swap before, it's really, really intimidating to get started, especially, after everything we've just talked about. There are ways to, plan in advance to have a good experience for everyone. And it can feel really high pressure to know that if someone comes, man, this is stressful. Actually, I hate that I'm saying this, but if someone comes and has a terrible time, right, then they're probably never going to give clothing swaps a chance again. And so no pressure. Yes. It's really important to make sure everyone has a good time. Wow, I hate that I said that. But you know that I'm right. And they'll tell their friends oh, I went to a clothing swap one time and it was terrible. And so, the more support you can have from your community, the more likely it's going to go smoothly, especially since you don't know what you don't know about throwing a clothing swap. But an expert like you, Sam, could give everybody the best advice for having a successful first go at it.
Yeah, and I love to. I just created this Discord channel because I want to bring more people that's interested in either hosting or finding clothing swaps as well, and making more questions while we build our community forum. Mm-hmm. And last month, I thought this was great, funny and great. A couple hosts were freaking out about not registering to their swaps, and we were just freaking out together. And it's better than freaking out alone.
That is, truer words have never been spoken. And anyone who's put on an event remotely recently knows that it's kind of an emotional roller coaster, because people don't RSVP in advance like they used to. I remember when it would be, if you wanted to throw any kind of event, whether it was a party or a yard sale or a clothing swap or what have you, all you had to do was go create a Facebook event and people would just come. It was so easy, yes. Right? But we don't have that anymore. And people, well, for one, people don't really use Facebook events, I'm pretty sure. But on top of that, it's just really, really hard. I don't know. I think the pandemic really changed our behavior, and we're so fearful of what could come up that we don't commit to anything. So I do think if you are planning a clothing swap and you're feeling really stressed out because no one has signed up or very few people have, it's important to find your other people to just commiserate with you and help you get through it, because that's most likely what's going to happen at first. You're going to feel really anxious about it, but then it's going to be fine. And sometimes you just need your friends, your people, to make you feel good in the interim,
Yeah, no, for sure. if I had someone when I was hosting my first clothing swap that actually understood what I was feeling, it would have been so much better.
Yeah, because it's a lot. It's scary.
Yeah, I mean, and when I was telling my friends, like, I'm hosting a clothing swap, first of all, like, I had to explain what a clothing swap was like 10 times.
Yeah, sounds right.
And there, I was like, but no one is coming. Like, that's the part that I want you to know. Like, no one is coming. And my friends will be like, oh, yeah. Like, I'm sure someone will come. And that was their argument. And I appreciate it. But I needed more than that.
Okay, so let's say you're a few days in advance and maybe only a few people have RSVP'd. What is your advice to people? Like, what's the minimum number of people you can have to have a decent clothing swap?
I mean, you can swap clothes like with a group of 3 people, but I will say like for a clothing swap to feel like you have more options and more friendly and community wise, I will say 10 people is like a very amount.
Yeah, I think that sounds right to me too. And also, like, I think you're just going to have to, unfortunately, like any kind of event you put on, even something like a clothing swap where you feel like, this is like a good thing for the world. Why can't everybody just get on board? It's pretty straightforward, like, especially if you're really into slow fashion and you understand that, you're kind of frustrated. You kind of have to tell people about it every day in a different way because not everybody maybe heard you the first time or saw your post or saw your invite or your email. And so you have to be that person who just keeps reminding people that it's happening. I've just experienced this myself firsthand, even with that Clotheshorse Jamboree, which we just had. And trust me, it was very stressful. And a lot of people didn't buy tickets till the last minute. We didn't sell enough tickets to like break even from the cost of it all. And of course, after tickets were no longer available, people were emailing me asking me if it was too late to buy tickets because they'd forgotten or didn't hear about it. And it was too late because we couldn't get them food or anything. And so I guess what I would say, like my big piece of advice is you have to like remind people every single day, basically. Like you have to be the clothing swap person until the event happens.
Yes. And I like, first of all, like, I just want people to understand that sometimes they get worried or they feel bad about charging like a ticket price for a clothing swap. And I wish people like understands and validates their work more.
Yes. Thank you.
Like you don't have to feel ashamed or shy about it. Like, like you are putting your time. It's more than a month. And you are arriving 2 hours before to make sure that everyone's going to have a great experience.
And you're cleaning up.
Yes. And you're taking like care of the leftover clothing. Like you're telling people, just go to your home and like have fun with your clothes. I will stay here and get everything cleaned up and figure everything out. So don't feel shy to put a price on your work.
Absolutely. And someone said this to me recently that really got me thinking, actually. It was sort of a game changer for me for how I'm viewing events going forward, is that when events are free, people feel it's easier for them to flake out on it and not show up, even though they said they were going to come. But if they've put some money down for it, even if it is just $5 or $10, they're less likely to flake out and they're more likely to come through. And I thought that was so interesting because I always try to put on free events. I'll have like a webinar and 100 people will sign up. It's free. And then only 30 people will show up. And I always feel like sort of sad. But someone was like, yeah, you should just charge money. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it makes people commit in a way that they don't when it's free. And of course, that means we're all terrible people, that we have to like have money involved to feel committed to something. But I also accept that like that is really how humans work right now.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Like people take for granted things when they are free. That's the reality.
It's true. It's totally true. And that's a lesson I learned this year, And the first time a friend told me, the person who said it to me was like, there was a lot of events. And they were like, my controversial opinion on this is that you need to charge people money so that they will show up. And at first I was really skeptical of that. But then I had other conversations with other friends who were like, they're right. And I was like, huh, so interesting. So what I'm saying is not only should you obviously charge something to cover your time and expenses, but also you should so people show up. It's very weird. You would think everybody would show up for something free, but that's just not how it works.
Yeah, no, completely. And even if you make it for free, then the control of the event is not realistic anymore for the host, because then you see like 50 people signed up, and at the end of the day, like 20 arrive, and maybe you prepared like food for 50 people.
Exactly. I mean, we live in what in my opinion, is the flakiest time in human history, where like I feel like I always had a couple friends who you could never count on to show up, even though they would say they would, and that's just like how their personality was. But in general, people would show up, but that is just like not where we are right now. And anything you can do to get people to commit so that you're not left spending a lot of money on food that no one's going to eat, or feeling stressed out about how you're losing money by just putting on this event that should not be a losing endeavor for you. I mean, these are all things to think about. Like if you put on a clothing swap, we want you to put on more clothing swaps in the future. So we want this to be good for the person throwing it too. That's just as important. And I think that like charging something is going to be an important part of it not being a losing experience for the person putting it on.
Yes. Absolutely. And when you were talking about like reminders, that is so true. Like if you are hosting a clothing swap now, you are going to need like some social accounts for that too, because people like that's the thing, like people expect also like so much from every organizer, and we just wish the commitment was the same.
No matter what kind of event you're putting on, even, honestly, like when we had our wedding, right? There was a certain level of what I would just call like customer service involved, where people were emailing me and they wanted me to help them figure out, where to stay and what to bring, what to wear. And I was doing a lot of help with people, like where to park their car, things like that. And, that was my wedding. So like that was part of the job. And in exchange, we got presents or whatever. So it all worked out. But when you're throwing a clothing swap, people are going to be reaching out to you with a lot of questions. They're going to be people who need a lot more help than others. And that is your time. And that has value. And that's another reason why it's important to charge something, because this is work you're doing. And sometimes it's like harder work than you think it's going to be.
Yes. And time consuming and all those things. Yeah. That's why I think like another good point when you're planning your clothing swaps, are volunteers, because just it's too much work for one person.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on volunteers and how do you organize that?
So when how I'm doing it right now, because of the product of BeReworn, when you create your event, there is a part where you can let people know that you're looking for volunteers, and they can just apply, and then you can just take a look to the basic information and reach out to them. What it helps to me a lot is like I put a limit, like a deadline on until when they can apply. And then I make just like a Zoom meeting and I let them know what are the things that I need help with. And I have like my roles already like assigned. Like I always say, like, I need someone on social media content. I need someone folding clothes. I need someone with the help, like checking the clothes when people arrives. And then people say like, hey, I'm good with this. I'm good with that. And of course they get like a free ticket, and I always make sure to have snacks for them.
That's great. And so like how many volunteers do you think, let's say you were going to have a clothing swap for like 30 people. How many volunteers do you think is a good amount to have to help you with that?
I will say 4 people is a very good amount, like, because plus you, there are 5. I think that works.
And so you've organized this, you've promoted this, you've done all the things, you have the volunteers, everything. So the day of the clothing swap, what do you do to get ready before everyone arrives?
So I normally like to arrive like 2 hours before, just because I need to do content creation.
Of course. Once again, why you need to charge, because it's a lot of time.
Yes. And then I need to set up the racks, like depending on the type of racks I have. I normally, because I've been hosting for a year now, well, I have leftover clothing that I like to display. So when the first person arrives, doesn't have to just sit there without like taking a look to anything.
That's really a good idea.
Yeah, so they like, even if you're the first one, there's already like something that you can look at and then you can wait. One of the reasons I like to charge a ticket is because then I can like offer some like cookies or a glass of lemonade or wine. And then you can, like do something. If you have volunteers, well, then you set up everything faster. I do recommend racks just because it's better to display the clothes and it's faster for people to move on from sections, and you avoid people just like trying to find a spot to take a look to the same table or stuff. Yeah, I normally I always put a duration of the event. I normally do 3 hours because there's people that like arrive there at the second the door is open, and then there's people that arrives like 5 minutes before the event is gone. So yeah, at least you have a time frame and you don't have to feel like in a rush. And after that, I always have these huge, they're like suitcases where I put all the leftover clothing. And I would recommend that before you host the event, you already have a couple of ideas of what you are going to do with that leftover clothing. So you don't not everyone has space for that.
Right. That's a really good idea. So when the people arrive, how does the actual swapping work? So everybody comes in and there'll be hangers there if you're using racks, and they can hang their clothes or put their clothes on the table and they can look around. But when does the actual swapping happen? And does everybody swap all at once, or do people go in groups? What's the best way to do that?
So what I do is I set a table and I sit there, and I love to have track of how many items every single person brought, just so we can talk about impact at the end of the event.
Oh, that's a great idea. So sort of when they show up, kind of sign them in and count how much stuff they have.
Yes. And if you have a volunteer, that's faster because they can take a look at the clothes while you're signing those forms. So it's not super slow or taking a lot of time. And then, they tell me hey, I brought these 10 things. And then they go take a look and they have their own bag. They can choose whatever they want and then they can leave.
Okay. That's great.
But I do like to do that little onboarding.
And okay, so I went to a clothing swap one time. I just wanted to put this out there. I thought this was really such a good idea that in addition to people bringing clothing, they also brought, you know how if you buy stuff from Sephora or Ulta, they always give you a lot of samples and stuff. And then you end up with a whole drawer full of all these weird samples of things that you're not going to use. So I did go to a clothing swap once, and I thought this was genius, where everybody brought all their samples that they didn't want to, and they swapped those along with clothing. And it was great because people were like, oh, this is my favorite shampoo. And they took all the packets of that or whatever. It was great because that was another thing that people sort of got out of their houses and got a new home with, where someone would actually use it. And I thought that was a little nice bonus thing. So I'm just putting that out there as a suggestion.
Yeah, no, I love that. I do that too, with makeup that I never opened for some reason, someone gave it to me or I have it, I don't know, and they're still in good conditions. And with accessories, because also that is a good backup plan if for some reason no one's finds something they like or something their size.
Yeah, that's true too. And I think a lot of people find that they have shoes and accessories and makeup and stuff kind of hanging around that they don't really use, that someone else would be really excited to find. And also, maybe some people come to the clothing swap and they're like, I actually have plenty of clothes. Here's some clothes I want to get rid of. But they are excited to get a belt or a hat or an eyeshadow palette. That's a better use in their lives than more clothing. So I think you could do a mix of things here, as long as you let people know in advance. And especially when it comes to makeup, you probably want to put some rules around that to protect people, from gross old makeup or getting eye infections or something like that. But I also have heard of people doing craft supply swaps, fabric swaps, all kinds of just stuff swaps, book swaps, etc. And so even if clothing isn't really like what you're looking to do, there are all these other things that you could swap with your friends and get more use out of it with someone else. It's just a great way to rehome things that you don't need, that are going to be someone else like exactly what they needed and wanted.
Absolutely. Yes. We actually are hosting a fabric swap here in Detroit the next week. So if anyone that's listening to this wants to come along, please do. There's going to be a small community of local small designers or anyone that has hobbies, or if you have fabric at your house, you can just come and swap. I was talking to this girl in LA a couple months ago, and she was telling me she's been hosting kitchenware type of swaps.
Ooh, I like that idea.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like these martini glasses that someone never used, and then you can just bring them to your house, or this blender. Like, I was just so obsessed, and I want to host my own now because, I don't know, I'm like that lady that loves to like have their friends over and have nice glass. I don't know.
I mean, I think that's such a great idea because people also tend to get those kitchen-y kind of things as gifts, and then they never use them. And guess what? I see so much of that at the thrift store. Yes. How about like swapping with your friends so that it gets used? I think that is such a good idea. I mean, I think we could be swapping all kinds of things all the time. And it's also an excuse to hang out with people and make friends and just get out of the house. And like I said, many of us are introverts who are spending a lot of our time alone, and we need that extra like kick in the butt to go out and hang out with people. And so this will get us out of the house.
Yes. And I feel like, I mean, of course, community, but like hobbies, I'm a huge fan of them because I feel like they've built a confidence. Like when people listen into the same things that you are. Like I was reading about how, yes, words of affection, like can help a lot of like humans to go through things, but also like just actions, like environment, like spaces of affection, just where you feel connected to the people, even if they don't know them already.
Yeah. And I think that's so good for all of us. Like we need more of that because, it's the places to hang out and meet people are fewer and fewer every day, or the reasons to go out and meet people are fewer. And, like going to a show or, even a flea market or something like that, it can be harder to meet people. But here's a situation that is so much more personal where you kind of have to talk and interact with one another. And I don't know, for me, if I have to just go up and talk to a stranger, I feel really uncomfortable with it. But if we're in a setting where it's very normal that you should just be talking to one another, even though you don't know one another, because that's part of the experience, I feel so much less shy about it. And it just feels, of course, I'm going to talk to all these people, because we're here to do the same thing. And this is like an interactive community sort of activity. So I think that these kinds of swaps, they have this pleasant bonus side effect of just bringing people together and hopefully starting friendships.
Yes, I love to like introduce people in the swaps, but then I stop myself and I'm like, do they want that, Samantha? Like, do they want to be introduced to each other?
They do. I think they do. I think that, when we were kids, like you just could go to school and you would like meet people, but now you really need people to say like, hey, hi, this is so-and-so. So-and-so, this is the other person. And then it's like, oh, great. Now we have like the permission to talk. I mean, there are some people, I know people who will go up and talk to anyone and they're not nervous about it, but I need to be introduced to people or I will just stand in the corner by myself waiting for someone to introduce themselves. Yeah.
That's what I get worried about because my husband told me the other day, like, what if they just want to hang out by themselves? And I'm like, yeah, but what if they want to be introduced to someone new? Like, it's hard to see the...
Right. I think they want to be introduced.
Like, I don't want to be that person that's pushing you.
But I appreciate what he's saying. But if you like don't want to talk to someone you haven't met, then you'll just be like, okay, cool. And then you'll go back to your corner. But so it's like no harm, right? But if you were hoping to like talk to someone or feel like less awkward, now you have your moment where you get that opportunity. So I think that's nice. I think it's a good thing. So why don't you tell me what you're going to do next with BeReworn.
Yeah, so the plan we have by the end of this year is to launch the app. One of the things I'm really excited about the app is that you're actually going to be able to keep track of your impact. After you go to an event, just kind of like Uber, when they ask you like how your event was and if you want to share anything, you're going to be able to share how many items you swapped. And based on that, in your profile, it's going to automatic like update like how like those items that you swap, what do they represent on like gallons of water saved or carbon emissions or this or that. Mm-hmm. So you like, I feel like that's inspiring because that's something that makes you feel good, and you actually know that what you're doing has a sense of belonging and you're doing something good for the world. That's how I see it. And of course, like on the host side, you're going to be having more tools you're going to let people know what sizes they can bring. People is going to be able to choose their events based on what people are bringing. There's going to be this virtual closet. There's going to be this community forum where you can hear what other hosts are talking about or like advising you to do.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
I think technology, like it's great when you can put it towards that helps to bring more people on board to like a greater cause. I don't know. I'm a dreamer, but I feel like we have to start somewhere.
No, I feel that way too. I mean, yes, technology keeps us apart and turns us against each other sometimes, but I also think it brings people together. Like I have all these friends all over the world that I would have never known if it weren't for like social media. So I actually feel very optimistic about technology being used as a tool for good.
Yes, because I feel like we have like there is this huge amount of people just standing on the fence, on the line. They want to be like, they want to live a more sustainable lifestyle. They want to be part of a slow fashion community, but they don't know how to start because no one in their close circle is part of it.
Yes, I agree. And this is like why technology can be really great, because we can reach people who don't have someone in their immediate circle, and we can help them out. And I think that's incredible.
Exactly. Like maybe if you don't want to ask, you don't want to like go and ask someone directly because of any reason. I understand that. But then you can just go to the site and find the event that it's better for you. Like if you don't have clothes at the moment that you want to swap, maybe you have a pair of old jeans that you want to bring back to life and you go to an upcycling workshop. Sometimes for smaller like designers or I have so much like respect for designers because it takes so much work to put your name out there. And I feel like these like workshops, they can just, like share their work and help you like to build amazing like stuff, or just community meetups. Like if you just want to have coffee and chitty chat with people that are into the same things as you are, I feel like that's also great.
I think a lot about how, technology has gotten us into a lot of like the environmental disaster that is fast fashion and overconsumption. But I also see how we can turn the narrative around and we can use it to help people, I don't know, connect, build community, spread knowledge, and really reverse and undo a lot of this damage. And it's kind of like we still have to get out there and use social media and like kind of market these ideas to people and have conversations with people we don't know and all these things, right? But there are all these ways we can use it to build something good instead of something destructive. And I'm excited about that. And I think that what you're doing with BeReworn is just one part of that. Like it's getting people to try something new and learn stuff. And, if you were putting on a clothing swap, you could even like hand out flyers or cards with information about fast fashion or how to shop more sustainably or how to take care of clothing, like giving people laundry advice and stuff like that. So in addition to bringing people in and connecting them and having them keep clothes out of the landfill and get more wear out of them, they could also be learning something and this could be like their first sort of like dipping their toe into the pool of slow fashion, and this is like where their journey could start for them. That's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you for saying that. And I agree on the technology. Like I also feel sometimes it puts us apart. So how I see it is, let me connect you, yes, to the screen, But after that, I'm going to let you go to real life and you're going to connect over there. Like doing real interactions in real life. We're just the beginning, you know? So yeah, I mean, I'm super excited. I wish I could host more events on my own. But they take so much time. So yeah. So if there's anyone that needs help or just want to do it for fun or as a, this is something very, interesting how swaps and these type of events are also becoming part of the circular economy. People is like starting to see this as a side, income. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I think that's true too. Like if you are throwing these events and you're charging admission, once again, you're getting paid for the work that you're doing, which is what we want. This can be a job for you, and that's amazing too. Because the throwing an event is really hard work, and it's not for everyone, but for the people who are good at it, it's like their favorite thing to do, And so I think like that's another job that exists within the circular economy. And that's part of the future we're trying to create. So your first clothing swap could be your first of hundreds or thousands that you throw in your lifetime. How amazing is that?
Yes. Yeah, that would be amazing.
I know. I love that future. I want that for us. So are there any other like final thoughts or bits of wisdom you would like to give everybody about clothing swaps?
Yeah, I will say like fashion is for the better or worse, like it's part of our lives and it's going to keep like being a part of our lives because we need to be dressed. Mm-hmm. And
yeah,
what I feel like if everyone do their part, we don't have to feel guilty about being in love with fashion. I feel like sometimes people is like, oh, like, yes, I'm swapping, but like, do I need this? Do I need that? Like, there's just so much guilt sometimes, at least on my side.
Yes.
So I feel like if we can be part of this circular economy, we can be able to do what we love without hurting the planet. Like we don't have to, yes, we do have to sacrifice things, but there is a solution to that.
No, I think that you're so right. I mean, that's such a good way to wrap up this conversation, that there's so much guilt associated with clothing, and we should not be feeling guilty about clothing. Like there is a way for us to be enjoying wearing clothes and cultivating our own personal style and having that creative expression without feeling wrapped up in the guilt of like destroying the planet and exploiting humans, right?
Yes.
And that's what slow fashion is. It says like, hey, we can have all those things while also not just like having a path of destruction in our wake. And it's just about changing the way it works, right? And changing where we get clothes and how long we have them and, our relationships with them and how long they get used and all of these other things. And that's what slow fashion is. It's saying like, we're going to still love clothing as a creative expression. We're not going to feel bad about it, but in order to get there, we're going to change our relationship with it. So that's what clothing swapping is doing.
Yes. I mean, and clothes has personality. Like I love to say that clothes have memory. Yeah, I don't know, like maybe like a special dress with like a great memory of yours, you can just give it to someone else. Like, it's like a memory book. I don't know. I'm very romantic when it comes to clothes.
I love when you find something vintage and you think about how now you're going to wear it and you're going to have all these memories in it. It's going to be in pictures of things you did and all this other stuff, right? And you're going to have memories associated with it every time you take it out of your closet. But you're not the first person who built memories within it, that garment, right? You might be the second or third or fourth or even fifth person who wore that and went out and did things and lived their lives. And I just love the idea of clothes having 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 different people's memories within them. I think that's such a beautiful idea.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I came with it. When I was thinking like, because people were telling me, you need a slogan. And I was like, I don't know, like I can't think of it. And then I love cats. I sadly don't have one.
Oh, but terrible.
I was telling everyone and I was telling myself like, hey, in my country, I'm from Mexico. We say cats have 7 lives.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? If a cat has 7 lives, your clothes too. And that's it.
I love that. Yeah. I think that's so true. Well, thank you so much, Sam. This was such a great conversation. I had such a great time. I'm going to share all of your information in the show notes so people can connect with you and get advice from you and hopefully put on their own clothing swaps.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you so much for your work and dedication, and I really appreciate what you do.
If you're enjoying this episode, then this is a great time to remind you that my work here at Clotheshorse is made possible by the support of listeners like you, just like NPR, and these great small businesses. Please go give them your support. Blank Cass, or Blanket Coats by Cass, is focused on restoring, renewing, and reviving the history held within vintage and heirloom textiles. By embodying the love, craft, and energy that is original to each vintage textile as I transfer it into a new garment, I hope we can reteach ourselves to care for and mend what we have and make it last. Blank Cass lives on Instagram at _Cass, and a website will be launched soon at blankcass.com. Located in Whistler, Canada, Velvet Underground is a velvet jungle full of vintage and secondhand clothing, plants, a vegan cafe, and lots of rad products from other small sustainable businesses. Our mission is to create a brand and community dedicated to promoting self-expression, as well as educating and inspiring a more sustainable and conscious lifestyle, both for the people and the planet. Find us on Instagram at shop_Velvet Underground or online at www.shopvelvetunderground.com. St. Evens is a New York City-based vintage shop that is dedicated to bringing you those special pieces you'll reach for again and again. More than just a store, St. Evens is dedicated to sharing the stories and history behind the garments. 10% of all sales are donated to a different charitable organization each month. New vintage is released every Thursday at wearstevens.com with previews of new pieces and more brought to you on Instagram at wear_st.evens. That's Wear St. Evens. Country Feedback is a mom and pop record shop in Tarboro, North Carolina. They specialize in used rock, country, and soul and offer affordable vintage clothing and housewares. Do you have used records you want to sell? Country Feedback wants to buy them. Find us on Instagram at Country Feedback Vintage and Vinyl, or head down east and visit our brick and mortar. All are welcome at this inclusive and family-friendly record shop in the country. Republica Unicornia Yarns, handmade yarn and notions for the color obsessed, made with love and some swearing in fabulous Atlanta, Georgia by head yarn wench Kathleen. Get ready for rainbows with a side of giving a damn. Republica Unicornia is all about making your own magic using small batch, responsibly sourced, hand-dyed yarns and thoughtfully made notions. Slow fashion all the way down and discover the joy of creating your very own beautiful hand-knit, crocheted, or woven pieces. Find us on Instagram at Republica_Unicornia_yarns and at www.republicaunicornia.com. Picnic Wear, a slow fashion brand ethically made by hand from vintage and dead stock materials, most notably vintage towels. Founder Danny has worked in the industry as a fashion designer for over 10 years, but started Picnic Wear in response to her dissatisfaction with the industry's shortcomings. Picnic Wear recently moved to rural North Carolina, where all their sewing and accessories are now designed and cut, but the majority of their sewing is done by skilled garment workers in New York City. Their customers take comfort in knowing that all their sewists are paid well above New York City minimum wage. Picnic Wear offers minimal waste and maximum authenticity. Future vintage over future garbage. Cute Little Ruin is an online shop dedicated to providing quality vintage and secondhand clothing, vinyl, and home items in a wide range of styles and price points. If it's ethical and legal, we try to find a home for it. Vintage style with progressive values. Find us on Instagram at Cute Little Ruin. Is there a little bit of Italy in your soul? Are you an enthusiast of pre-loved decor and accessories? Bring vintage Italian style and history into your space with the Pewter Thimble. We source useful and beautiful things and mend them where needed. We also find gorgeous illustrations and make them print-worthy. Tarot cards, tea towels, and hand-picked treasures available to you from the comfort of your own home. Responsibly sourced from across Rome, lovingly renewed by fairly paid artists and artisans, with something for every budget. Discover more at thepewterthimble.com. Deco Denim is a startup based out of San Francisco, and it sells clothing and accessories that are sustainable, gender fluid, size inclusive, and high quality, made to last for years to come. Deco Denim is trying to change the way you think about buying clothes. Founder Sarah Mattis wants to empower people to ask important questions like, where was this made? Was this garment made ethically? Is this fabric made of plastic? Can this garment be upcycled? And if not, can it be recycled? Sign up at decodenim.com to receive $20 off your first purchase. They promise not to spam you and send out no more than 3 emails a month, with 2 of them surrounding education or a personal note from the founder. Again, that's decodenim.com. Thank you to Sam for sharing her expertise with us. I am so excited about what she's doing with BeReworn. I'm going to be sharing all of her info in the show notes. So if you are thinking about doing your own clothing swap and you could use some guidance, reach out to her for a one-on-one. Also, give BeReworn a follow on Instagram and check out the platform. Let's make clothing swaps a regular part of our lives. That's all for this week's episode, and I'll be back next week to talk about how to shop secondhand online. As a reminder, if you have anything to contribute to what we discussed in this episode or about secondhand shopping as a whole, drop me an email or an audio message at amanda@clotheshorse.world. That email address is also always in the show notes. The last thing I'll say as I wrap up this episode is this. As we're moving through these episodes, I'm seeing a new recurring theme emerging in the world of Clotheshorse this year, and that is challenging the status quo, doing things in a new, different way, and showing others how and why we are doing these things. Sometimes it's as simple as wearing the same dress for multiple events. Other times, it's showing off a mended article of clothing or hosting an event without disposable cups. It's funny to call these things like a new way of doing things, but the reality is that they challenge everything most of us take for granted right now. They challenge the so-called normal way of doing things that late-stage capitalism and all of its influencers and listicles show us every day. It feels good to me that we're having these conversations, that we're getting excited about doing things differently, because it feels like taking back control of our lives and the world around us. It feels new and exciting, and most importantly, it feels all caps hopeful. And I love that. So keep looking for the new way to do things. Keep showing it to others. If plastic cups could become the norm for decades, and by the way, they're not even cute, then so can something way cooler like visible mending or clothing swaps or upcycling clothing or just reusing dumb mugs. I'm excited because I feel like we're actively making a difference around us, and those seeds of change that we have been sowing together for years now, they're already growing, and they're going to continue to grow and spread and flourish as we keep on keeping on and bring new people along for the ride. It's okay to be excited and optimistic in the face of all the other shit we have to deal with right now. I know I'm excited. I know I'm optimistic. And I hope you're too. Thanks for listening to another episode of Clotheshorse. You know what I always say. It was written, it was researched, it was edited, it was hosted, it was all the things by me, Amanda Lee McCarty. As always, I would love if you would leave a rating or review. I would love if you would subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. These things all like push Clotheshorse up in some algorithm and, I don't know, get other people to listen to it. Speaking of getting other people to listen to it, tell your friends. That's the biggest thing you can do to support Clotheshorse is get more people to listen to Clotheshorse. If you'd like to support my work financially, there are numerous ways. You can find them all in the show notes or in my profile on Instagram or at my website, clothehorsepodcast.com. Speaking of clothehorsepodcast.com, that's also where you can buy Clotheshorse merch, which includes iron-on transfers, embroidery patterns, and stickers. The last thing I'll just say here, if you haven't heard already, there is a Slack channel for all of you Clotheshorsies. No, we don't call each other that. There is a Slack channel for the Clotheshorse community. You can find the link in the show notes. I'll send you an invite after you fill out the form, and you can come and join the conversation. Lastly, but of course, never leastly, thanks to Mr. Dustin Travis White for our music and audio support. And I will see you all next week when we talk about how to shop secondhand online. Bye.